Open Your Eyes is brought to you by the Belize Bank. Our country, your bank.
Good morning and welcome to Open Your Eyes.
Start your morning right.
I'm Marlene Cuellar.
And I'm Asana Keitano. Good morning.
Thank you for joining us this Monday morning.
How do you feel?
I'm feeling good.
I'm still trying to process that it's Monday morning. For some reason, the weekend has gone by rather quickly but eventful. And I am yet to fully take it in that I'm back at work and there are things to do this morning.
Well, yeah, you've only been here a few minutes, so it may take a bit of time to sink in. But it's the Monday morning blues, right?
Yeah, it
and
is.
it is pretty gloomy outside, which makes it a slow start day.
Man, you know what? The month of January, like when you're between December and January, and perhaps even early February, when you wake up, at least for us who have to be at work early on days when we have the morning show, when you wake up, it's still pretty dark outside. And when you're leaving home, albeit a little after 6 o'clock, it's still just about to begin to clear up, really. It's still fairly dark. And so it gives you a feeling, it always gives you that kind of gloom, that kind of, dull start or whatsoever until either the time zone changes or the revolutions of the sun around the earth and the moon and all of these other stuff change, and then you get back the full daylight by 6 o'clock.
Yeah, sometimes bright sun by the time we really get into summer. No, for people who wake up early or for people who go out and exercise early, it's always an interesting time because you're out with the moonlight. Like you're running or riding or walking to the moonlight as you head on out there. But that is, of course, just what we expected this time of year. I expect a bit more chill, too. I thought there was going to be a cold front this weekend. Not so cold.
Well, we had some rains on Friday and Saturday, I believe it was.
Yeah, Friday was pretty wet.
Yeah. We've gotten over it, at least for the remainder of the weekend, we had gotten over the rains. So we'll see what we have for this week.
That's right. All right, but there is a lot to get into today, so we're going to get things started with our motivation. And that means it's time for Eye Opener. And our Eye Opener, taken from dailyom.com, goes like this. We hold on to material objects because we think they make us feel secure, when in reality, they are cluttering our lives. In life, we tend to have an easier time acquiring possessions than we do getting rid of them, just as we harbor emotional baggage that is difficult to let go of. Our lives can tend to be filled with material objects that we may feel compelled to hold on to. Most people fiercely hold on to material objects because this makes them feel secure or comfortable. It is only when we are ready to let go of our baggage and be vulnerable that it becomes possible to recognize the emotional hold that our possessions can have on us. When you make a conscious decision to fill your personal space with only the objects that you need to bring you joy, your energy level will soar. Clearing your personal space can lead to mental clarity and an improved memory. As you learn to have a more practical and temporary relationship to objects, positive changes will happen and you'll have space to create the life that you desire.
I'll begin with a confession.
Ooh.
So the eye opener speaks to holding on to objects, right? And getting rid of what you don't need and holding on to what you need. So my confession is, admittedly, I'm very much into fashion and clothing and stuff, right? And so over the years, I've amassed all of these pieces of items. Some as part of a collection, others is just around, right? And the eye opener, in terms of relating that to the eye opener, these are physical objects. These are items that, you know, you've collected over a period of time. Some have sentimental meaning and value. Others just take up space.
Yeah.
But for me, it's the absolute most difficult thing for me to get rid of what I don't need, right? And so if I am also to translate that into dealing with emotions and dealing with baggage, as the eye opener also mentions, sometimes we hold on to certain feelings, or sometimes we hold on to certain ideas or notions that really don't, as we would say, you know, bring in or carry away, right? We're just holding on to it because over a period of time it forms a part of your emotional collection, so to speak, right? And so I look at the eye opener and I think as to how that impacts me, or how I fit into that context. And indeed, every so often, like when you do your spring cleaning, you get rid of stuff that you don't need. And so it's also a part of being able to reset and get rid of the emotional baggage at times. But it's challenging because we like to hoard, right? we hoard items, we harbor ill will, we hold on to feelings, you know, it's just perhaps part of human nature.
Yeah, and some people are worse at it than others. I mean, you've definitely seen the shows Extreme Hoarders and what, and we all know a few really bad hoarders as well. But, you know, I get your point, and I think for me, what it triggered in my mind was thinking, it's exactly what you said, those moments where you set aside or just impulsively get up and start to clear through things and finally let go of things in your house. You know, you get up, you clean the cupboard or the fridge, or you know, that junk drawer that just accumulates all kinds of stuff, and how good you feel after. And I think it really, when I think of that and I put it into context with the things that we hold on to emotionally, it's kind of the same thing. Having that time to say, okay, do I really need to hold on to this? Do I really need to spend time or energy on this issue? And how can I let it go? And I imagine, you know, it's such an important part in being able to lighten your load.
I think the idea of lightening one's load is akin to clearing your space. If it's mental, if it's emotional, even if it's physical space, right? Because if we're to take the eye opener literally, once you're able to get rid of these objects, you create room for new things that you may want to introduce in your life or in your space or what have you. Right, so that's one way of looking at it.
Or you can just be a minimalist and have less.
Yeah.
Because majority of the times we don't need them. It's like, I want to mash a lot of corn here. It's like those china closets that we inherit that have all the dishes that you never use.
Yep. Yeah.
All right, that's all I'm going to say because we got to go to the weather. All right, we got Catherine Cumberbatch on the line. Good morning.
Good morning, Marlene, and it's Sonny.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you today?
I am okay, getting ready
to clock
for
off.
the next 2 hours to go home to my home after a long night shift.
All right. Well, we won't hold you back any longer. We just want to find out what we can expect today because it does look a bit gloomy out there.
Okay, what we have right now outside is you have a lot of low clouds, stratus clouds, and some inland areas are experiencing fog. That's why it looks like that. But like after 8, 9, those low clouds should supposed to dissipate it out, and we should have mostly sunny skies with only a few cloudy spells today. And as it pertains to our temperatures, we can expect temperatures of 84 degrees Fahrenheit along the coast, 86 inland, and 74 in the mountains. Tonight, the skies will be partly cloudy, and low temperatures will drop to 72 along the coast, to 68 inland, and 64 in the hills. As in the case of showers, if you look at our radars, you can see that we have a few showers along the coast and offshore Belize. We expect those to linger during the morning hours, and by afternoon we expect those showers to dissipate out and become generally isolated. And as for the winds, winds are coming out of the north to northwest right now at 5 to 10 knots, and then later the winds will veer and will be blowing out from the east to southeast at 5 to 15 knots. Our sea state will be slight to light sharp. And, extended forecast, which is for Tuesday and Tuesday night, is for generally fair weather to prevail, and showers, if any, will be isolated. So the general condition is that we have a light and relatively moist airflow prevailing, and later a drier air mass will set in over the area. And the good news, Marlene, for the weekend, the forecast is for a strong cold front across the country by Saturday into Sunday. So you need those jackets.
Fantastic. All right. A dry one too?
You will have a little bit showers at first when the transition from the cold air overtaking the warm air. You'll have some showers, and then after that, everything will push out to sea, and it will be just this strong northwesterly flow you'll be having, and it'll be nice and cool.
All right.
Perfect,
Yes.
perfect.
Warms my heart to hear about the cold. Thank you so much.
Because I know you love the cold weather. You love the cool temperatures.
That's right. Well, thank you so much for that update today. And I love that you're telling us that the dark clouds for this morning are going to go away.
Yes, that's the low clouds, the stratus clouds, where it's producing fog in some areas, parts of the country, especially over the inland areas and in the hills and so. So that usually dissipate out after 8. By 9 o'clock it should clear up, and you should see sunshine. Maybe sunshine should be out.
All right. Well, you have a great day, and thank you so much for the update.
You too, guys, and stay safe.
All
Take
right,
care.
Thank you.
Yep.
There you have it.
Look forward to my sweater come Friday and Saturday.
I know we're already on the weekend already. It's just Monday. We
It
got to
is.
get through it. And the good news is that things will dry up by the end of today. But of course, Isani, I know all our viewers are looking forward to the next segment. There's a whole lot happening in the country. So we are going to shift gears to Eye on the News.
I started off earlier by saying that it was a rather eventful weekend, not only in terms of perhaps things that are happening on a personal level, but if you look at it from a social point of view. When we left on Friday, Marlene, a lot of things were happening across the country. I want for us to begin this morning with what is perhaps the biggest conversation piece. It has been so since Wednesday of last week, actually. And this has to do with the party leader of the United Democratic Party once again finding himself in a serious situation where an allegation of domestic abuse has been brought against him. And this, well, it has been withdrawn, but the effect of what has happened is what we're still very much discussing in many households, social circles, etc. So on Friday, we were able to interview the chairman of the UDP, who gave his 2 cents. He weighed in on what is taking place with the leadership of the party. If you would recall, last year, just around this very same time, the United Democratic Party was, for all intents and purposes, in shambles in terms of a similar allegation. Now, this was to an extent backed up by video footage, as you can see there, of a previous altercation that the party leader had with the mother of his child. And so we're here once again. And on Friday, as I was mentioning, the chairman of the United Democratic Party took a hardline position. Some would argue that it's a principled position, that something has to be done in terms of the party leader stepping down, demitting office in the wake of this latest scandal. And there are some in various quarters who would say, well, who is he to call on the party leader's resignation? But if you're to look at it from a principled perspective, as I was saying earlier, the idea of leadership is that, one, you lead by example. I think that's one of the primary tenets upon which leadership is based. And if you have these constant allegations being made against you, there are going to be those within the party who question your ability to lead them effectively. In this case, as I was saying, a year ago, the United Democratic Party was trying to find its footing in terms of having lost 2 elections, right? The general elections of November 2020 and the subsequent municipal elections. And then you had this particular scandal that rocked the party at that time. Now here we are again with the same individual, right? I know that there's a press conference that's scheduled for this afternoon at 3 o'clock. Now, that press conference will be hosted by the party leader himself. We're yet to see what will become of his role as the leader of the UDP. There are several trains of thought.
Yeah.
And what I can say to some extent, Marlene, is that I'm reliably informed that the press conference, he will be joined by Dr. Shanika Arnold, his fiancée. That's what we're being made to understand. I don't know for certain if this is to announce his resignation. What the invitation does say is that the forum will be used to be able to discuss the way forward for the United Democratic Party.
Yeah. Well, you know, I think the conversations over the weekend and after the release came out about Honorable Faber hosting this press conference on this evening, the assumption is that he'll be deciding or making a decision as to whether or not he will resign. We can't say that, and in fact, I think probably that decision-making process is still ongoing even up to, let's say, 2:30, because it is a very tough decision to be made, but one where I think with the interview that the UDP chairman gave and from the announcements that you've seen online from other UDP representatives, from women organizations, that the call is very loud for him to resign. Now, I think for me, Isani, there are 2 critical issues here, and they're both equally important. One is the crisis that is taking place within the United Democratic Party or official opposition, and the leader of that opposition. And once again, an issue that we have consistently battled, and that is one of gender-based violence. And they merge, and this time, the second time publicly, with the leader of the opposition. But I did pull up these statistics. We interviewed the Belize Crime Observatory earlier this month to look at statistics, and this is what we're looking at with gender-based violence in the country. Over to the left, you'll see that there was 32% in 2021, there were 2,155 domestic violence complaints made. One of the key things that people who work with this particular group will tell you, that the complaints made do not represent the amount of domestic violence that takes place in the country. That's a fact. The majority of victims do not report. You know why? Because it's hard to make a report about domestic violence. Hard not because of the system, but because of the personal choice that it takes to be able to step forward and say, yes, I am a victim. My loved one, the person I chose to have a relationship with, has abused me in some way. And there are multiple forms of abuse that one can endure. Emotional, financial, physical, sexual.
Mental.
And so it goes the full gamut. So what it takes for a victim, predominantly women, I hear, you know, it happens to men, but the statistics show 8 out of 10, it's women. What it takes for a woman to come forward to be able to make a complaint, it takes a lot of will, determination, guts, and sometimes just sheer fear for their lives. So I feel that because of the political drama that is playing out, that is definitely, and as I said, there are 2 very big issues, and to me, of equal importance. Last year, we reported on horrific murders that took place within relationships. And it's really interesting because when we see the comments that come out from these types of murders, we say, why didn't somebody say something? Why didn't somebody do something? Why didn't she report it? If she'd made a report, why didn't the police act on it? And here we have one situation where there is a public figure involved, and then the comments, some comments, not all, go contrary to it. Oh, this is private. Why? This is political. And I'm really worried when I see and hear this type of commentary as to what it will mean for other people who are right now in their homes worried about triggering another incident of abuse within their households. If they come forward, are they going to face this type of backlash? Are they going to, if they are, and let's remember too that domestic violence occurs in all spheres of society.
Yeah.
All spheres, from the most well-known, very influential people to people that you perhaps don't think of as influential or powerful. And the concern that I have is where we start to get into this, oh, it's political games and questioning police motives publicly and feeding into that conversation. What are we saying to other victims out there who are scared for their lives, but scared to come forward? So I wanted to say that because I think it's important that we remind ourselves that this is not just an incident of that we can, that happens casually. This happens on a day-to-day basis in many households and can lead to death, as we have reported before. Now, it is an allegation being made. In this case, the fiancé of the leader of the opposition has withdrawn the complaint. They said they're going to deal with their matter privately. And I know that there is a lot of commentary being made about the commissioner insisting to move forward and having Dr. Arnold go to the magistrate court to withdraw the complaint. It's interesting, and I do have to check. I know they had spoken about changing the laws to be able to accommodate such. Whether it has been done, I'm not sure. And what purview they have to be able to do that, I'm not sure. But it is something we know that in any case of domestic violence can really help to spare a person's life. It gives them the opportunity to get out.
Yeah.
And it's, I feel for her because nobody wants to face this type of public scrutiny. Nobody deserves to face this type of scrutiny. But the unfortunate part is, and we know this, when you're a public figure, there is there is a certain amount of scrutiny on what you do, where you do it, and how you do everything. One. And that's just public figures, but when you're an elected official, you are a chosen representative of the people.
Regard.
Yeah. So if I choose you to represent me, I choose what behaviors I want you to represent me with. And I think that that's the portion, and it's unfortunate, that's part of the challenge that you have with being with any person who has a public image.
The thing is, Marlene, to add to what you're saying, and I wholly agree with everything that you've mentioned in terms of what the statistics show, and of course what the prevailing trends are in terms of gender-based violence. But one thing here that we need to reiterate is that this isn't the first allegation brought against him, right? Notwithstanding the fact that last year, following the unsuccessful recall convention, he held a press conference during which he also said that he was seeking therapy to deal with his anger management and what have you. Now, whether or not that has worked, well, we saw what happened on Monday and on Wednesday of last week. I think.
Let me just add something there, because I think that's cruel. My psychologist friends are probably like clamoring at this. Therapy doesn't fix you. You have to do the work. So I think it was applauded. We interviewed him here. He talked about mental health and being able to tap into issues. But therapy works if you do the work. And that's what it takes. Like, you have to actually implement what you have decided you want to implement. So he was very open about accessing therapy. It doesn't mean it can't work, but there is this incident and we don't know the circumstances for it.
One of the things that totally stood out to me on Friday, when the chairman of the UDP came out against this behavior and the fact that he said that should the National Party Convention or the Council not move swiftly to deal with the matter, then he himself doesn't find it right that he will continue in that capacity as chairman. So that's one thing.
And even said what? He might not be senator on Monday as a result?
Yeah, because of the perceived vindictiveness of the decisions to follow, the consequences. But this is what I wanted to say. Following that, the leader of the opposition sent out a one-sentence statement that came to myself, it came to the other media houses as well, in which he's basically saying, well, look, it's a vulture circling around what he believes to be a perceived carcass. This is me paraphrasing what was being sent. And the fact that this individual, the chairman, is in no position to be able to offer any suggestion or recommendation because he hasn't won a seat as yet, not even a convention. But this is what, to me, and this is perhaps from a personal point of view here, if I could go on record to share, is that it doesn't take someone to win a convention or an area for them to offer sound advice on certain matters, right? If it's one of a moral or an ethical stance, then a garbage man could tell you, you know what, it looks bad for all of us, your individual actions, so you need to do something about it and do something that can change the optics of it for the organization or the party in this case. You don't need someone to have won a convention to tell you, you know what, it looks really bad, right? And so that's just one of those things that to me stood out clearly.
Yeah. Now, you know, I think shifting from the domestic violence aspect of it is to look at what can or what may potentially take place with the United Democratic Party at this point. Now, I believe in the interview, Senator Perfeet spoke about the 2/3 majority needed to be able to trigger a convention. I don't know whether or not the delegates have been in discussion. This is a very serious situation for the leader of the opposition. Because there is an official statement that was made. You know, there's video footage of his vehicle at the police station. There was a warrant issued for his arrest. He had to go before the magistrate court. So as public as the video of him racing towards the door, this is even more public. And it is the same issue for which he lost that position of leader of the opposition less than a year ago. So this is, I mean, I think everyone looking on is saying, how do you move forward?
It's a kind of deja vu that no one wants to have to relive, really.
Yeah. But, I mean, I think in carefully saying that, you know, there's a choice in your actions. And there are consequences for actions.
Yeah.
Now, what will those consequences be? That is the question. And what will the party itself stand for? So that's all, you know, up in the air up until 3 o'clock this afternoon. But even then, I think people will be paying attention to see what the other members of the United Democratic Party will say or do or respond to this situation.
Last year, and again, it's interesting because there's so much background on what has transpired in the past that we could draw from.
Yeah.
Last year, at the parliamentary level, 3 out of the 5 agreed that, you know what, we need to remove Honorable Faber as the leader of the opposition, right? And so that gave way for Shine Barrow to ascend to the leader of the opposition. And what is equally interesting in that is that he has gone on to, in a sense, qualify himself. I don't know if you saw this was kind of running parallel to what happened with Honorable Faber. So Shine got his a certificate for his studies in parliamentary governance, right? And so I find it interesting because on one hand, this person kind of rose quickly within the ranks of the party to become the leader of the opposition, albeit on an interim level until the end of the leadership, the recall convention, but went on to qualify himself. The other kind of just, it would seem as if though he relapsed, if nothing else. It kind of went back to where we were. So there's a lot that we can't discuss on that, Marlene.
Well, yeah, and I hate to be the one to say it, and I'm sure I'll probably hear from Honorable Shine Barrow after I say it, but he did face a similar situation before he was elected to office, and it was a similar scenario. A report was made, retracted, and then it was kind of passed by over time. These are facts. We reported them. So the leadership crisis within the opposition is concerning because our opposition is important for democracy.
It is.
And they're already so small. And
Only 5 of them.
And these are issues, I mean, we may talk about things like integrity and corruption. Unfortunately, we live in a society where corruption is perhaps a bit more accepted than issues of gender-based violence. At least that's how it seems at this moment. But there are some big decisions for them to make. And I think the entire country is watching to see where they will go next.
All right, so I'll use that opportunity to just remind that the press conference is at 3 o'clock this afternoon. And of course, we'll be keeping our viewers updated on what transpires then. The other major thing that we were dealing with over the course of the weekend, and I know this is an extended eye on the news, but there's a lot that we need to cover. So Thursday into Friday, and even into Saturday, was an exceptionally violent 48-hour period in Belize City, where it would seem as if though the gangs were wreaking havoc in neighborhoods across the old capital. On Thursday night, a young man, Mr. Lambe, was shot and killed in the Jane Usher Boulevard community. That was one. By Friday morning, Joseph Winston Tanga James was executed not far from downtown Belize City. All right. And a few hours later, another young man was shot and killed at his place of business in Burrell Boom Village. The young man, Dimes, as he's known by his friends and loved ones, he was also executed. Now, less than an hour or so later, perhaps within a period of 2 hours, another young man was shot and killed in the Belama area. Now, if I could go back a bit to the incident involving the young man over at the Matilda's shop in Burrell Boom, I recall a few months ago having visited that very same premises. It was an afternoon where there was a double homicide that had taken place there, where a young woman lost her life as well as another man who was shot and killed inside the store. By all accounts, persons were saying that the young man that they caught up with on Friday was in fact the intended target for that previous double murder. And so it's unfortunate that we're reporting on these kinds of events, but it has prompted the Leadership Intervention Unit to spring into action. So over the weekend, a lot of the gang members and their leaders from various communities across Belize City were called in. And so the Leadership Intervention Unit, which involves Dr. Richard Rosado, who is now Deputy Commissioner of Police, William Dawson, and Kevin Kittle, they were able to bring these young men together to try to keep the peace. Because you know, Marlene, there's often a chain reaction. When one incident happens, it triggers reprisal from another quarter or what have you. So it would seem apparent that that was what was happening between Thursday, Friday, and over the weekend. So there we go. So the young men were brought together to be able to discuss how they could continue to kind of quash things amongst themselves, right? So we'll also have an interview with the Leadership Intervention Unit in terms of this particular violence disruptor intervention, if I may, or this particular meeting.
Yes. Are they praying?
No, it's called a power circle.
Okay.
Right, where they're committing to certain, certain actions or actions not to be taken if that were the case.
Okay.
Right, so that's what happened over the weekend. I have something scheduled with Dr. Rosado and the guys later today as well. So those are the main things that we wanted to touch on over over the past 72 hours, if I may.
Yeah.
Things that are rather fluid and are developing.
Yeah, there's also a viral video of the robbery in Santa Elena where the robbers not only went in for the cash, but they beat up on the customers as well. Really concerning when you consider the fact that, you know, most times people get in, get the money, and get out, but this time they were just straight up abusive to people who were in the store. So that's also, I know, another issue that people have been discussing over the weekend.
All right, so that brings us to the end of our Iron News this morning. More details, a lot more details will be shared with you, our viewers, later today. At 3 o'clock, again, there will be the UDP press conference at the Bell China Bridge, at the Secretariat there on Youth for the Future Drive. So we will be bringing to you guys the outcome of what transpired at that press conference, right? And then, of course, at 6 o'clock, you can catch our newscast on television, or if you're on social media, you can catch us on Facebook or on YouTube as well. So that does it for the Iron News.
All right, and now it's time for us to get into our show for today, and that means we are going to start our conversation with
Dr. Russell Manzanero, who's going to be joining us this morning to discuss the breakdown of the COVID data, since the spike in mid-December.
All right, so that's going to be our primary conversation for today, and then we have a conversation with the Ministry of Tourism and Ministry of Education. They're launching a new campaign to commemorate World Education Day, and it allows for the opportunity for the Belizean diaspora to get involved and support children getting back to school. So that's a really big conversation as well, but we're going to have that second, and we got to take a break. But before we do,
we're saying happy birthday to Iandra Henry. There she goes. Happy birthday, Iandra.
We're going to take that break, and when we come back, we are going to be putting into perspective the data on COVID. Are we peaking? Is the spike on the downward trend? We're going to find out with the epidemiologist in just a few, so stay tuned.
The ministry is collaborating with SpeedNet Communications to have a vaccination campaign for children ages 12 to 17 years. Children who get vaccinated will get a chance to win fabulous prizes, including backpacks with supplies, Nintendo Switch, tablets, book tuitions, and MiFi with 3 months data. Only children 12 to 17 years old can participate in this Smart and Ministry of Health and Wellness raffle. At vaccination sites, each vaccinated child, upon being vaccinated, will receive a ticket to place their name, age, date of birth, BHIS number, and contact information on, which will be filled out by a parent or legal guardian. The sooner a person vaccinates, the more chances he or she will have to win. Get vaccinated, Belize! Vaccination saves lives.
After a rough week of school, Jake and his friends decide to treat themselves to frozen coffee. And since they don't have cash on them, they decide to use eCash. With eCash's geolocation feature, Jake can easily find the nearest coffee spot. With eCash's built-in option to split bills, Jake can pay the bill and his friends can reimburse their portion of the bill. Jake scans the merchant's code and confirms payment. Jake then views his transaction history and taps on the transaction recently made, then taps the Split the Bill button where he selects the Evenly option to evenly split the bill. The application splits the bill automatically. His friends receive and accept the request. Geolocation and splitting the bill via eCash makes Jake enjoy his digital lifestyle.
This can be you. Get vaccinated. The life you save can be yours. This is a message from the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
Following the COVID-19 vaccination, some people may experience side effects such as soreness at the injection site, chills, nausea, body aches, or a fever. But these symptoms go away after a few days. These side effects are a result of your immune system responding to the vaccine and are not a sign that you are sick with COVID-19. The COVID-19 vaccines will not give you COVID. When you receive your vaccine, the health worker will advise you what to take if you are experiencing any of these side effects. Remember, these mild side effects cannot compare to you not being able to share memorable moments with your family and friends if you fall gravely ill from COVID. Vaccines bring us closer.
Las tradiciones son atemporales, pero mantenerse al día es necesario. DigiWallet me permitirá hacer todas mis compras favoritas. Es fácil y seguro. Solo es agregar dinero a mi DigiWallet y ya puedo irme de compras en mis tiendas locales favoritas. Oye tú, a mi familia le encanta. A mí también. Es nuestra nueva tradición. DigiWallet, próximamente.
Buying a car should be a great experience, and St. John's Credit Union wants to make it even better. But we offer more than just great low rates. We make the application process easy and make sure our members get the best service possible. At St. John's Credit Union, we offer excellent products backed by exceptional service. So the next time you are buying a new or used vehicle, take advantage of St. John's Credit Union's Drive Forward Auto Loan product. We put the buying power in your hands. Come and drive forward with our auto loans with rates as low as 9% and low or no down payments. Drive forward with St. John's Credit Union. Some restrictions apply.
Today's COVID update is brought to you by Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price but stay for the service.
And welcome back. We have been joined virtually, Marlene, by Dr. Russell Manzanero. He is the lead epidemiologist at that unit of the Ministry of Health. Good morning, Dr. Manzanero.
Morning. Glad to be here. Morning, Marlene, Sally.
Good morning. There's a lot for us to touch on this morning in terms of the data surrounding the COVID-19 pandemic and, of course, the changes that are happening within the ministry and the fact that you have also been returned to your post within the epidemiological unit. Let's first begin by talking about what we're seeing. I think for the most part, Belizeans want to know where we are in terms of this particular wave of the perceived Omicron. I say perceived simply because we have not yet gotten as yet a confirmation, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong, in terms of whether or not we're actually seeing Omicron in this country. Let's start there.
Sure. You've seen globally what is happening right now. I mean, now that we have this new variant Omicron around it, this is pretty much spreading, and it's spreading quite rapidly. So Omicron in itself is spreading in its nature. Since it's avoiding immunity from natural infection and from vaccines, then it kind of evades that immunity there, that your defenses from that. So that is one of the main reasons why this is spreading. If you've been following for other countries and the US, you're noticing that the majority of their cases now are all Omicron. For us here in Belize, if you notice, mostly the increase of cases started after around mid-December.
Yeah.
From there, you saw a very sharp increase of cases. Pretty much, we were kind of alerted, yes. So pretty much we're kind of alerting to something that definitely this is something other than Delta. Sequencing and surveillance for those elements, actually, we've been monitoring this for quite some time. We've been fortunate to have the assistance of CDC, and through Baylor that we have the equipment here in Belize to do sequencing.
Yeah.
We've been monitoring those samples. Of course, we do cohorts of which samples would be tested, since we are working with resources that is being given to us. So with that, of course, we were able to track and follow Delta and Alpha, Beta. So we've been following those, and in this part of December, we were already having those samples pooled.
Yeah.
So when these numbers came out, we already had samples being pooled for sequencing. So yes, we got back those results last week, and yes, there is Omicron here already.
Yeah.
But that was expected.
Yeah.
I mean, with all these viruses and the way how they're mutating and they adapt, it's just a matter of time before they enter your country. Of course, with mobility and tourism and people moving around in December, it was pretty much expected.
Yeah.
So at this point, yes, we are seeing that Omicron is pretty much, I'm not going to say displacing Delta, but we're going to say that the majority of those samples that were sequenced in December were Omicron. So I believe it was more than 80% of the samples sent, those came back positive for Omicron.
Yeah.
We still have Delta, and we still have the other variants. So
some cases of Delta were identified in that last sequencing?
Yes, we still do have Delta. We still do have Delta, so that is pretty much still here, and those are the concerns that you keep hearing people saying Omicron is a milder version, or it won't give you that much symptoms. Perhaps you will not be severely ill, or you won't end up hospitalized, but we don't know. So it pretty much is a risk for those who are still not vaccinated. Even though you are vaccinated, but you have an underlying condition, if you're diabetic with cancer, or you know, those kinds of illness, then you still are at high risk.
That's a key point you're making there, that people may not know that they can still get the Delta variant because it still is circulating in the country. But Dr. Manzanero, I see the graph that you sent this morning, and when we see, I think that is the daily case report from March, which is March 2020, which is the start of, or the detection of our first case, to January 2022.
Yes. So what you're
Go ahead.
So what you're seeing here is basically the daily cases that we've been testing for COVID-19 since the beginning of the pandemic. And of course, as you mentioned just now, the first case was in March 2020. Pretty much from there, you've been seeing these numbers of tests coming back. These are confirmed cases. So of course, it's the peak for Delta pretty much was after around August, September of last year, when you started to see this increase of cases. It pretty much went down by the end of the year, but then as we came into December, you started to see that drastic or that sharp increase in, well, what we would believe is Omicron.
Yeah. So two observations I make from this chart, or even the one when you're looking at the 7-day average. We typically call this our fourth wave, and that's because we had that little outbreak in 2020. I think it was it was less than 50 cases at that time, but that wasn't really a wave. So we're really in our third wave.
Yes. Well, actually, we're still looking at our, as you mentioned, our third wave. I think we are still at that point to be considered a wave, actually, and to get over a wave, you actually should not be reporting any cases at all.
Okay.
Either through surveillance and testing. So I guess the use of the term that you've been over a wave is not being looked at entirely.
Okay.
So if we haven't reported on the absence of cases, then is it fair to say that we've been in a sustained wave?
Yes,
because I don't know that we've ever gone to zero.
Yeah, we've never gone over any of that. So it's a sustained, as you mentioned, but also we're seeing those increase. This is what the other epidemiologists and other the experts out there are saying. We're in their first, second, third, or fourth wave. If you look at that, we are in the fourth, but I think we never did got over the third wave because from Delta we started seeing
transitioned into Omicron.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's very clear. What comes to mind for me are all these people who are working, testing and treating, because basically from last August, when you look at those graphs, they've been testing a larger number of people because we had a peak in the 2021, and then barely decline and back up again. But the other observation I make is that when we're talking about reaching a peak, it's about 2 months to reach the peak and then 2 months to come down. I noticed the Delta spike is maybe a little bit longer. Omicron is completely different. Are we looking at 4 months of increasing cases before we say this surge is over?
Yeah, well, what you've been seeing in other countries, for example, in the US and those developed countries which are much larger than these, it will take a longer time for them to stay at their increase of cases, and then they plateau and then decrease. For us, I think we won't have that long of a period. Why? Because we are still implementing our measures. I mean, in those other countries, you keep hearing that the public health measures are not being adhered to, or
there's no mask
mandate.
mandate.
So for us, I do believe that it would be different. Even though we still need to enforce certain areas, I do still see that many are adhering. What has a lot to do with this, though, is that our vaccination continues. We are at 51% of our population is fully vaccinated. But we also need to be aware that from our end, we still need to do our public health measures, which is the masking, the hand hygiene, the social distancing. And even so, in those other countries, I think what's there is that the vaccination protocols that they have as well for those younger population. For us, that poses something that we need to enforce these public health measures, as we still do not have that pediatric population to be covered. I'm more talking about the pediatric population that goes to at the primary level.
Yeah.
So are we in the peak of this wave?
We are now, yes.
And what does that mean?
Well, if you look at the positivity rate that we're having, I mean, in the past, we were seeing, I guess, up to the end of last year, we're having up to 10, 15 was the highest of positivity rates. So the amount of tests that you do per day, from that, then the number of confirmed cases is how we calculate our positivity rate. However, in this latter part, we're seeing that these positivity rates are above 20, 25, almost 30 in an instance.
So last week, I think one day was about 30% positivity rate.
Yes, you're right. So it is a concern, because now we're seeing that from all these numbers of tests being done, this is the amount of positivity that is coming out from those tests. So basically, it is showing you that the number of tests being done is picking up those who are seeking services. Of course, we still are not taking into account those individuals who do not access services, who are contacts of positives and stay isolated and would never get tested. So all of this data is still there. So we know that these numbers are even higher.
When we began with the coverage of the pandemic, it was the Alpha variant that was initially recorded, correct? And then we moved subsequently to Delta and now Omicron. When you look back at where we began to where we are now, are these other variants still around? With the exception of Delta that we're just sort of transitioning from to Omicron, is Alpha and Beta and the other ones still around or wreaking havoc?
Yes, we still do have reported cases of Alpha, Beta, Delta, and well, now Omicron. What we didn't report in the past was Lambda, the one that we were seeing through other areas in Asia. So we didn't see those cases here. However, we're still picking up a few cases of the other variants as well.
So when someone contracts COVID, you're swabbed, and then the result of that swab comes back to say, okay, you're positive. At that point, you do not know what variant you have other than the fact that you're now sick with COVID, correct? So how does one determine perhaps eventually what they were actually afflicted with?
Okay. So in general, whenever you have any of these variants, what you're displaying is a COVID-19 infection. So if any test that you do, for example, if you are with a recent infection and you're displaying symptoms and they tell you to go to one of the health clinics to get swabbed, pretty much what you're going to do there is a rapid antigen test. That is going to pick up the antigen levels in your system. So it's pretty much, if it comes back positive, it is telling you that you have had, you are having a recent infection, and you're pretty much in an infectious state that you can transmit that infection to others. The way how we also do is that if you remember that the rapid test also can come out negative, but by PCR it might be displaying something else.
Yes.
So what we did then was that individuals who were contacts of those positive individuals, whoever came in contact with somebody who was positive in their household or in the office, and pretty much the person next to me tested positive, then I am considered a contact.
Yeah.
It's not everybody in the entire building is a contact. It's just the person who is directly next to you, in front of you, behind you, that kind of scenario.
Yeah.
So when you do that and you go to these clinics, what they do is they still do the rapid tests, but they would also take a swab for PCR. Those PCR tests are not done there. Those get sent to CML, and there is where they would do the real-time PCR. So that one has to go through an amplification process, then you have to go through a series, so it takes a little bit longer, so 48 to 72 hours. What happens then is that pretty much if you are a contact of a positive, of a direct contact, then these are the individuals who are asked to be in isolation. So that's where we're at. Granted that protocols have been changing gradually, so we're still trying to understand how this virus is working, the infectious time it is. As you saw with Omicron, pretty much what the CDC has said in the US is that it's shorter time. However, to that, I do need to mention that we still need to be careful of how we're gonna do that, because we do have individuals who are older, who have an underlying cause of illness, and they pretty much take a longer time to get the virus out of their system. So that means that they can have a longer infectious period.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the 5 or 7 days. So we still need to be very cautious, and that's where we're asking that individuals who are like that still need to get a medical clearance from
A
their
negative
physician.
test. Okay. That's what I find interesting, because I know that in the US they were talking about shortening the quarantine period, and then went back to asking for a negative test at least at that 5 or 10 day mark before you re-enter back and interact with other people. So if someone still tests positive, mildly symptomatic, but tests positive on a rapid test 10 days later, they still have to isolate.
Yes, that was what they would recommend there. However, what we do understand of the virus, and this is what we've been trying to follow with other countries as well, is how long is that infectious period? Individuals who are without symptoms or who have been displaying mild symptoms, these are the individuals who would usually clear the virus out of their system even faster. So the given time is 10 to 14 days. Individuals who are with an underlying illness or some other comorbidity, then they're the ones who might be shedding the virus a little bit longer. And they're the ones who need to be monitored.
Okay.
So that's where the whole contact tracing, your physician comes in, so that you are aware that these individuals need to be followed.
Yeah. So let's go back to another bit of information that you've compiled for this morning, and that's looking at the positivity rate from the start of the pandemic. I find it really interesting. Orange Walk is the district with the highest positivity rate. Do you want to expand on that a bit? Is it because less people get tested? How do we interpret these numbers?
Okay. First of all, when we're looking at data, you really have to understand where it is coming from.
Yeah.
So you look at it at individual. For here, we look at it at the district levels.
Yes.
Each district has their own population size. So based on the number of tests that are coming out, you also want to look at the population size of the particular area that is being tested. So when you're talking about persons tested, for example, you mentioned Orange Walk. If you recall, when the pandemic started and we started getting those very high numbers, they were mostly from the northern region and from, in particular, from Orange Walk.
Yeah.
It could have been many factors that led to it. We were still hearing border crossing. We were still hearing everybody was still moving around somewhat until enforcement started to play its role. Those, what we saw then was pretty much what contributed over time to those high numbers. The number of tests, the number of positive cases coming out from a very smaller population will take up your numbers. So that's pretty much what you're seeing here. If you also look at the data that is being presented there, you're also seeing that areas such as Stan Creek also are having a larger area versus what you see in Belize. When you hear Belize and you hear the Belize district, you're going to hear most of the cases and the very high numbers are from Belize. But when you go down and you look at it at a population size, you're seeing that those other areas are a concern, and these are where they need to actually heighten their surveillance, their testing, enforcing of isolation, the public health measures. So that is the reason why these numbers, when you look at it at a population size over time, tells you a different picture rather than just hearing these numbers daily, that most of it is from
So there was a point in time where we were being told, for instance, that there was a massive cluster on the south side of Belize City. Now, if you look at that in comparison to, for instance, a larger area such as Stan Creek District, how would you kind of put that into perspective for us to be able to understand the scale?
In a smaller setting, what the concern is that transmissibility, or the way how it spreads, is faster because you're in confined areas. So in urban settings, that's the concern, because there are so many individuals together that you start having the spread of the virus. Areas which are more spread out, even though they're small, but they're a bit more spread out, they have a lesser risk of being infected. Now, in the smaller areas, mind you, it tends to go along with the virus itself. When we're talking about the reproductive rate, or how much the virus can infect other individuals, that also has a lot to do with it. When we saw, for example, with the original strain, the alpha of COVID, pretty much we were seeing that one person can infect 1 to 2 individuals. Then came Beta and Delta that pretty much could infect 2 to 3 to 4. Now that we're seeing Omicron, we're seeing that it can actually, one person can infect 5, 6, 7 individuals. And those individuals, well, you can see how it goes from there. It affects another 7 and 7. And that's the reason why we're seeing all of these cases. And a lot of the cases are coming from the urban areas, which is right. But still, it has to do with the population size that you have. So the numbers that are being, I guess you're seeing Orange Walk, Cayo, and Stan Creek, these are still in a way affecting more that area.
Yeah. It's interesting, though. I mean, so I hear your point. You're looking at it for the population size itself, and when we look at this accumulative, this total number of tests taken and total number of persons tested, you're talking over 200,000 persons have been tested in Belize district,
that's right.
versus almost 30,000 in Orange Walk. But it does, I mean, because we have spoken about the positivity rate so often, when you look at it from this point of view, it shows that the other districts have had a significant number of cases so far. It just doesn't seem that large because, well, Belize City has higher numbers.
Yes, that's right.
So with that, let's talk about the fatality rate. You also have data on that too, and I wanted some clarification because you have it broken down by districts, but the question is it that the persons who passed away are residents of Corozal, Orange Walk, and maybe died somewhere else, or did they die in the district itself?
Okay. For data that is on death, for example, all deaths go through what we call a verification process at the unit. So it's pretty much gathering the information from somebody who dies, but we cross-check also data that is in the BHIS. We also get the death certificate that is released from the medical officer. What we're getting back, what we cross-check here is the residence, where they were residing.
Okay.
So we look at what is in the BHIS and what is also reported from a family member or the next of kin on their death certificate. And that is pretty much what is being reported. Mind you that the BHIS is something that needs to be constantly modified. You need to be, whenever somebody goes to access care, these are the questions. Are you still residing here? Is this your number? Because of these same instances that when we're reporting, we can get that adequate picture or true picture of where these things are coming from.
Yeah.
So with the death certificates, it goes through another process, though. It's a longer process that we need to verify with the death certificates of what is happening and what the physician has reported from their family members or the next of kin as well. And that is sometimes when you see that the death being reported, sometimes it's not covering on the day the person dies. You might be covering from past deaths that have happened in previous days or weeks because it goes through a process of validation.
So sometimes that confirmation is made based on the death certificate.
Yes, that is right.
Okay. Which can happen multiple days, sometimes even a week after.
Yes.
So, okay, so while the daily infection rates reflect exactly what it says, the number of reported cases in a 24-hour cycle or what have you, the death rate is calculated differently based on the fact that it has to undergo this process for the certificate and what have you?
Yes, we look at what is being calculated. The death rate is being calculated over the amount of tests being done, and from those people who tested, how many have died.
Yeah.
So it is an estimate there of what we're seeing of individuals who got infected and have passed. So the deaths being shown here by district is pretty much from residents that we were able to collect. Mind you that a lot of these deaths did happen at our tertiary level, perhaps at KHMH. However, we're not reporting as KHMH death or Belize district. We need to go back to their residents, where they were coming from.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's important to know. So it may be a resident of Corozal who was admitted in a private facility in Belmopan and passed. They'd be registered as a Corozal death.
Yes, you're right.
But going back to it, there's a when you look at the hospitalizations and the case fatality rate, what's interesting, Belize and Cayo districts have the higher number of hospitalizations.
Yes. When you're looking at these instances of hospitalizations, pretty much, as we are aware, whenever somebody is infected with COVID, you might just be, one, asymptomatic. If you're displaying mild symptoms, then the recommendation is that you would isolate, rest, make sure you hydrate and those things. The moment you need to be hospitalized is because now you're perhaps having some difficulty breathing. Or your oxygen saturation is going down, but you're having that difficulty to breathe, or you're very congested, and so you need to get care. And this is when those records are being captured for hospitalized cases. Anybody who goes into the system there that may need just an observation, they don't necessarily have to be under ventilation. You have those who are also being given high flow oxygen. So these are the instances of hospitalization. When you're looking at it per district, this is what is being shown, that at each district, all facilities has the capacity to have these individuals under observation. Again, we go back to areas that had very high numbers of hospitalizations, which did come out from the Orange Walk district, Cayo district, and of course, Belize district. I think the ones that had the lesser numbers was Toledo and Stan Creek, so those hospitalized cases. So that's pretty much what we're seeing here. Of course, the death is pretty much what you heard was that of those who got hospitalized, perhaps 1% to 2% of those deaths would be from those areas as well.
All right. So what other, I mean, as you start to compile the data, we're approaching almost 2 years since the detection of the first case. What are some of the interesting insights that you have found so far?
I think what we're still looking at are the individuals who are affected. I mean, COVID doesn't choose anyone. I mean, we're seeing that the male, females, they're both equally almost affected, perhaps with females at 51%. We still do see that the number of deaths are higher in males. We're seeing that the population that is being affected are the working group. And also, when you look at it closer, I think I sent another graph there, of those who are over 60.
Yeah.
So what you're seeing there are perhaps the individuals who are at home, but these same individuals who are working and then going back home, and then these are the ones who are being, infecting their elderly grandmother, mother, and that's that scenario. So we are seeing those instances.
Go ahead.
Then the numbers that you're seeing in pediatric cases, if you look at those under 1 all the way up to 19 late adolescents, you are seeing that this is a large number of individuals being affected as well.
Yeah.
In the coming days, in the coming weeks, I do believe these numbers will increase.
So that's 20 to 40. The age group of 20 to 40 are the most it's the age group that tests positive the most.
Yeah, up to 45, you're still going to see those numbers high. Yeah.
So so they're going to work and they get it.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we've been seeing. When we look at, because we can also look at occupation, then those are the instances that we're seeing, okay, well, these individuals were perhaps infected elsewhere and they're taking it back home now.
Do you have any graph or any stats that would show us where we are in terms of persons who have contracted COVID who are vaccinated versus those who are unvaccinated?
Yes, we would have those. What we are seeing, I don't have it here, but what we are seeing are increased cases, of course, still in the unvaccinated. We are seeing numbers in vaccinated individuals, but this is where we're seeing that they're also with an underlying condition.
Yeah.
So even though we are seeing individuals who are fully vaccinated, but are seeking still healthcare, it's because perhaps there is an underlying condition there that has not been managed well, or even so because their immune system is already weak. And then and then with an added strain of the virus, then this is where the hospitalization comes in.
So how would you compare the booster shot to that then?
Yeah.
Because then you have persons who are unvaccinated who will contract COVID. You have persons who are vaccinated who will contract COVID. And then you have persons who are vaccinated plus have taken a third booster. So how do you compare those three categories?
The booster shots, I know I really wouldn't know the data yet for that. I would need to look closer at the booster shots in those individuals to see exactly what you're saying, to see what is the relationship between infection and booster shot, those who have been boosted versus those that have fully vaccination. So there is a comparison to do there. There is still a need to look at those numbers and to do analysis on that. What we have seen is that, well, I'm not saying here in Belize, but what we're seeing is that even though you're being boosted, it kind of kicks in the antibody response even more. So you are being protected from Omicron.
Yeah.
So it does give you a 70 to 80% higher immune response. So that is what is being seen out there. It is what is, this is what the research and the scientists are seeing at this moment, that those who are boosted are pretty much at a better, well, I'm going to say a better chance to avoid severe infection and hospitalization.
Yeah. That was going to be my question, but I guess since you don't have that data compiled yet, we don't know, because I know right now we're categorizing hospitalizations based on vaccinated, fully vaccinated, or unvaccinated, or partially vaccinated. But what we don't have is hospitalization rates for boosted or unboosted person. Yeah.
Yes.
And that would be interesting to know, because I know the international data says that if you're boosted, you're less likely to have severe symptoms.
Yes, you're right.
Okay, so that was one of the insights that you have looked at, that the working population are contracting the virus, and the other spike is in the over 65. So
Yeah.
I know science does allow for some assumptions. The assumptions is this working age is taking it home to those over 65.
Yeah, that is what we pretty much have been seeing. I mean, we go, like we mentioned, we go back to the BHS and see their occupation that they have.
Yeah.
Whenever they reach out, the contact tracers, they would ask them, if you're working, please stay at home. So all of that data is recorded.
Yeah.
So I mean, the contact tracing element is key here. I mean, what they do and how they give back the information, how they get in contact with other individuals, that is the key element of how we can get this isolation and testing going for other individuals.
Yeah.
So it is at that point that we're seeing. My other that I saw was the pediatric population that I had mentioned. Perhaps we're not seeing that many cases now, but in the coming days, I mean, with the resumption of classes, the movement of primary level students again, I mean, it's going to happen. Omicron in itself is very transmissible. It spreads quickly. So we need to be very cautious with our children. So if they're going to go back, just let's ensure that they're using their masks, social distancing, hand hygiene. So this is something that I know as a parent, you're sending your kids back, you pretty much are sending them in the hands of your teachers. So this is a huge responsibility for them as well. But I mean, as children, this is what we should have been doing at home.
Yeah.
Ensuring that your kids know how to use a mask, when to use a mask, how to do your hand hygiene, all of that. So these are elements that we're seeing. It might not be that much of an increase. I mean, it all depends on how we adhere to our public health measures.
Yeah.
I mean, we're going to have a little increase in the numbers. Yes, it's expected because we do not have that population vaccinated as yet. But if we do keep with our public health measures, we should not be seeing those increase in that particular population.
Yeah. And that seems to be, that's always the message that we keep saying, that you keep your distance, you wear your mask, you wash your hands. This is how you protect from COVID, and you get vaccinated and boosted.
Yes.
To reduce your chances.
Of course. So yeah. So you're going back. I mean, the students are going back, but you also want to be surrounded by those individuals who are where we're thinking that they should be vaccinated. I mean, teachers and on all the educators around them are the ones who should also be vaccinated.
So, Doc, Omicron has definitely caused its own challenges. While we aren't seeing as many severe cases, there are hospitalizations taking place. But the concern is, how long is this going to last? How long are we going to see this surge continue?
Yes, so definitely we are expecting that the numbers are going to go down. That's in every scenario. I mean, when you're talking about a virus, that is the nature of how it is. You're going to see these very high numbers, and then you're going to plateau, and then at some point you're going to decrease.
Yeah.
But along the way, it all depends on how we as our human behaviors, our public health measures are being done, if we're going to maintain it that way.
So if
The virus in
we're
itself-
peaking, sorry, I just wanted to get some clarification. If we're peaking now, we're going to plateau.
Yeah,
And
we're gonna
if we
see-
continue with our public safety measures, then we should see a decrease. But are we saying
Yeah.
in a month,
So-
in a few weeks?
Yeah.
What's that looking like?
So we're looking actually at a decrease by the end of this month. So we're actually starting to see lower numbers. We are expecting that the numbers are starting to decrease. We're going to start seeing those numbers even further in this week. And that's the trend that we're looking at. So we're hoping that by the end of the month, we're going to see somehow that these numbers are much less.
Okay.
Our vaccination needs to continue. I mean, individuals still need to know that the vaccination is key it's a prevention. So you use your vaccination, you use your public health measures, your social distancing. All of these need to be in place. I mean, vaccination is not the key here for prevention only. We need to still continue with the use of masks. So this distancing, the hand hygiene, all of that needs to be in place. So the virus in itself, like you saw in the beginning, it pretty much is something new to us. We were never exposed to this specific type of coronavirus.
Yeah.
And that was the main reason why we had so many severely ill and deaths. Kind of mutated, and then you saw now alpha, beta, because it was trying to adapt and see how it can do certain processes. I mean, that's the nature of a virus. It changes, it mutates so that it can adapt and try to fit into the environment for it to establish itself. That's the nature of viruses.
Yeah.
Now with Omicron that has so many changes, I think the changes can be one, either to benefit the virus itself or to benefit somehow in a lesser way severity. So what you're looking at is that Omicron, perhaps with all its changes, is still, because of the nature of so many mutations it has, it kind of has that spread easier and faster to other individuals. So what you're seeing here is that unlike the other variants, Omicron pretty much is not developing or establishing itself in the lungs. It's pretty much an upper respiratory presentation, and pretty much Omicron is pretty much developing in the throat, in the nose, and that's the reason why we're seeing these kind of symptoms versus what we had in the past.
Yeah.
And this is perhaps the reason why we're seeing these milder cases as well. Now, the reason why viruses do that is perhaps to establish itself, as I mentioned. If you recall H1N1 and all the other ones that came and pretty much they stayed, pretty much this is something that we're trying to look at as well.
Yeah.
It might be here to stay. It is something that we're going to have to live with. But we're looking at perhaps that these are the variants that perhaps is going to be of a lesser severity, even though it's more transmissible. We might still need to do our annual shots for it, but it's pretty much like the flu. I mean, we still have the flu and the flu is still here. People still die from flu, and pretty much this is the way how coronaviruses will work as well. So we are hoping, or researchers are thinking that this might be one of the ways that this COVID-19 is going to roll out. We're not sure, but there might be other variants as well that are coming around the corner. So that is still a possibility.
And there still is so little known about Omicron, the reinfection rate, long-term effects, because it was just detected last November. That's less than 2 months ago.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah. All right, Doc. So according to the data so far, we are just in the peak, which means the most active cases we'll have is right now. So we have to be extremely careful as we move around. Any other advice to our public?
No, I think it's something that even though we're hearing it's a mild case, it doesn't mean that, okay, well, it's a mild case, it's like a flu, and I'm not getting that much of a sore throat other than, the coughing, the congestion, I can't breathe. That kind of thing, it might not be there, but we are still having individuals who are at risk. We have our individuals over 60. We're still having those with comorbidities. So please, we need to ensure that the vaccination still continues. We still have a responsibility of wearing our masks, hand hygiene, your social distancing. And I believe that once we can do all these things in place, this is how we're going to actually, what we call, flatten the curve. It's a working process. I know we have what we call pandemic fatigue. That individuals, now it's the second year, third year, and we're still trying to do the same things, and pretty much individuals are getting tired, but we cannot let down our guard.
Absolutely.
I mean, the regular flu can kill you. I mean, Omicron is still there. We still have Delta. We can't say we've gone through that, but we're still having this mix of variants in Belize still.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Manzanero, for putting it all into perspective as to where we are and why we still must be vigilant. Of course, we are grateful for the information that you've shared as well. Stay safe.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
All right. And with that, we are going to go ahead and take a break. When we come back, as we said, we're going to be talking to the ambassador for diaspora relations in the Ministry of Tourism, as well as a representative of the Ministry of Education, to talk about a collaboration they're doing to get kids back into school. That's coming up in a few. So stay tuned.
This COVID update was brought to you by Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price, but stay for the service. Working off-site doesn't mean you have to be off your game. Studies have shown that simply adding a keyboard and mouse to your laptop increases productivity by 26%. Add a monitor, and you'll be 35% more productive. At Fulltech Systems, we have what you need to enhance your remote work or e-learning experience. With devices such as headsets, video conferencing monitors, webcams, keyboards, mice, docking stations, all with the brands you trust. Keep connected with collaboration tools like Microsoft 365 Suite and Kaspersky and perform efficiently no matter where you are. Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price, but stay for the service.
Your life just got a lot less complicated with Belize Bank Contactless MasterCard Debit Card. Introducing our Standard Debit and MasterCard Platinum Debit Cards. Now you can make purchases anywhere MasterCard is accepted with one tap, pay and go. Your contactless card never has to leave your hands, especially in these times. And your card is embedded with multiple layers of security. Platinum card holders get to enjoy extra benefits like price protection, purchase protection, trip inconvenience, and luggage protection, just to name a few. Start enjoying a cashless lifestyle today with the Belize Bank.
Connecting people. Creating memories.
Hey guys, so here we are at the Glaze Out Kitchen. I just prepared this amazing broccoli.
Sharing a smile. NextGen, the ultimate digital experience.
It's a fact that your credit lasts longer when using Smart. During these times, we're all trying to find ways to cut costs and save the little resources we have. With Smart, it's easy to do that. It's a fact that with Smart, your credit lasts longer. You can call Smart to Smart and Smart to Digi using your promo credit, while with the other guy, you can only call OnNet, Digi, or BTL numbers. What does this mean? You get to call any national number using your promo credit. Your promo credit is free, so that call is also free. Know your facts. Don't be tricked by the other guy. Be smart and save your dollars.
When someone you love becomes a memory, the memory becomes a treasure. Channel 5 introduces the Daily Obituaries. The Daily Obituaries will broadcast all death and funeral announcements and memorials to honor your loved one's life and memories. The Daily Obituaries airs on Channel 5 prior to the evening newscast, with subsequent repeats at 10 p.m. and 12 noon the following day. It will also be placed online on our social media platforms, all for a standard package fee. Celebrate their lives and memories with Channel 5's Daily Obituaries. Honor in life and reverence in death.
Whether you're at home, on the road, at work, or at school, if you see news happening or suspect that something might be up, call or text the Channel 5 News Belize tip line at 672-5555. You don't have to give us your name, just give us the tip. That's 672-5555. Call or text us so we can check it out.
And welcome back. For our second segment this morning, we have been joined in studio by the Chief Executive Officer in the Ministry of Education, Culture, Science and Technology. Good morning, Ms. Diane.
Good morning, good morning.
We also have with us the Ambassador for Diaspora Relations in the Ministry of Tourism, Sandhya Murphy. Good morning.
Good morning.
And of course, we have a board member for Build Belize. He is Raymond Gongora. Good morning, Mr. Gongora.
Good morning, sir. Good morning. Good morning. Thanks for having me.
All right, so this morning we're going to be talking about this new campaign being launched called Donate to Educate. And while we have the CEO in studio with us this morning, I'd like for you to begin with giving us an explanation of what this campaign is all about and who it's going to impact.
So actually, I have to say, this campaign really started as the brainchild of Ambassador Murphy. She contacted us some time ago in her capacity as Ambassador of Diaspora Relations. And she explained that she really wanted to be, she can do this better than I can.
I know.
She wanted to be able to do something that would support us.
Okay.
And so we've been talking a lot, and the campaign came from those conversations, talking about what we needed in schools and how the diaspora could support. So yeah, it was very cool.
And that's one of the things I wanted to jump in. Ambassador Murphy, it's so, Ray, if you can hear us, you'll have to mute, because I think we're hearing Ray. But let me just go back to Ambassador Murphy. The role of having an ambassador to work with Belizeans who are living abroad is something I think that is applauded, not just by the diaspora, but people back home, because there's a lot of synergy that can be built upon. So I wanted to kind of start off there, talking about establishing this role, and also how this came out as one of the priority areas.
Well, first of all, good morning, everybody. Good morning. And thank you for having us on the show. When I had the privilege of being appointed ambassador, I was speaking to Minister Mahler, and I told him one of the things, and he's very much aware that I am very passionate about, is education and community service. And I wanted to make sure that I could incorporate that in my role. And the thing is, Marlene, for a very long time, I've been wanting to give back to my home country, and I could not figure out how I was going to do that. And I was appointed ambassador. And when I started meeting the diaspora, I realized that I was hearing a lot of the same things, right? A lot of the diaspora wanted to help people at home, and they didn't know how to do that, where to go, who to ask. And they kept, even when they were sending home donations, they were constantly running into logistical issues trying to get donations home. And so what happened was, I spoke to Minister Mahler and I said, you know what, how about we try to marry, education, something I'm very passionate about, and community service, and get the diaspora involved and help the diaspora to facilitate the process of working with us in Belize, whether it's logistical issues or anything else. So this is kind of how the whole thing started. I then, with the full support of Minister Mahler, of course, he is such a big advocate for the betterment of the people of Belize, and so he was full on board. And the great thing with this is that being the ambassador, I'm working with the diaspora, and then also with Build Belize, I'm working with the diaspora and with education and health and community service. So I'm kind of marrying everything together to get the diaspora involved, and of course our Belizean people locally. So it just all worked out perfectly. Yeah. And Dan knows that I ran over to CEO Mahia and I told her, you know what, this is something that I really want to do, and I'm really concerned with all the children that are out of school, and because of not having what they needed to be able to do online learning. And of course that has to do specifically with laptops, which is one of the things we're going to be talking about. So that's kind of how it all started.
So Build Belize initiative is going to be kind of the NGO that will help to do the fundraising for, I know you're looking to donate some laptops. Is that how it's going to work?
Well, so so the way it's going to work. Well, first let me say, Build Belize Inc. is a nonprofit organization whose purpose is to empower and improve the lives of disadvantaged Belizeans and to support the diaspora in the socioeconomic development of the country. And we are like most NGOs, right? We're here to assist the government in serving and improving the community. We're not, we are a separate entity from the government.
Yeah.
We're a separate entity again, but we are here to assist. And we're not trying to reinvent the wheel here. We have aligned our goals and objectives with what has already been created by the holistic plan that's already in place by the government.
Yeah.
And so we're just trying to facilitate the process and make it easier and try to get everybody on board. But I want to say more importantly, it's extremely important that I express, Build Belize Inc. is very much committed to transparency and accountability. We're really here to serve, and we just want people to know that we're here to serve and be available to the diaspora and to people locally.
Yeah, that's such a great point, and I want to get Ray on it, because I know we've heard from people in the media, Belizeans who are living in the diaspora all the time. They want to help, but they don't know who to contact, who they can trust, or whether or not the initiative they're assisting is really the best fit for them. So let me get over to Ray for a moment to talk about his role, and as a member of the diaspora, just what this means to him.
Means a lot, Marlene. Thanks for having me this morning. Build Belize is a nonprofit organization, and we are reaching out to the diaspora, and we are asking them to give us their trust. You've done it before, Belizeans, and we're asking again to continue to do it. What Build Belize is promising is transparency. We're promising transparency. We're also promising to get the things that you have to the people in Belize. Yeah. And we're trying to remove all of that overhead expenses that make things more difficult and harder to come by to the people in Belize. That's what we're all about. We are about the human side of this. Yeah. As the ambassador shared with you, we have a campaign going on, and we have three parts. We have the laptops, and we also have a preschooler kit, and we also have the opportunity to help Belizeans in Belize with educationally and with that financially, with school fees, with lunch money, with bus fare, transportation fares, and this is yet to be worked out, and we hope to make sure that the Belizeans in general understands and believe that this will happen.
Is there a particular target that we're trying to meet here?
High school students to start with the laptops. High school students, why? Because they are more mobile. We're going back to basic, Marlene, and we're going back to the nitty-gritty of things. In the days gone by, we had we had slate and slate pencil. Okay? Yeah. And whereas Jankro used to dry the slate, we had to move on to exercise book. And you have your exercise book where you keep your notes and your notes available. But now we're looking at laptop where you have your notes from first form right through to fourth form.
Yeah, yeah.
You have access to the internet. You have access to so many things, and we want to continue to be a leader in education in the Caribbean, Central America, and to be able to compete with other international countries.
Yeah. This is, and it's interesting. I definitely wasn't the slate era. I was more the folder sheet era with the trapper keeper. But I hear you.
Okay.
But I do want to say, though, I'm seeing data being cited, of course, by the Ministry of Education about the situation of our children. And that's really what COVID-19 did and the closure of school. It highlighted disparities that already existed.
Absolutely.
So is that, in being able to have Build Belize Inc. and Ambassador through her work with the diaspora there, being able to fill this gap, was this something, let's hear about it from your end.
Well, we are looking at this as absolutely another means to an end, right? We have to learn from what we've been going through.
Yeah.
We all know this. And we look at the situation where we see, as you said, the disparity that's been heightened. And so with the government trying to do its part, as Ambassador mentioned, Build Belize Inc. here provides another support team.
Yeah.
Here's another group of people who may assist. And I think we've all encountered the situation that both Ray and Ambassador have described, where people say, well, how can I help? So what we've tried to do is to support them by saying, these are priority needs that we are seeing. One thing definitely is the need for digital devices.
Yeah.
We know that there were almost 14,000 tablets that were distributed, that were purchased and distributed mainly to secondary school students. Some did go to primary school students. We need to learn from this exercise, right? We've been doing a lot of work trying to track, trying to monitor. We've been logging the challenges that have been noted with these tablets. And so we want to learn from that. We want to learn what are really the things that are needed, how do we supply this need, and then how do we monitor, how do we track, how do we keep an eye out to make sure not only that the devices are going to students who need them, but also that they will be devices that can be used for the purpose to which they are intended.
Yeah.
So this has been, from our perspective, we're looking at these situations, we're trying to see, all right, how do we meet these needs? Here they are saying, how can we help? The one step toward getting what you want is knowing what you want.
Yeah.
So, with the devices, that was one thing that we knew that we needed help with.
And it's, how will you identify the families or the child that will benefit from the laptop? Because you said something important there, which is, you can give out tablets, but you could give to someone who already has an iPad at home.
Exactly.
So how do you identify the children?
The schools do. The principals know their students. And they're wonderful, they monitor, they track. And so they have the lists of students who need devices. And I have to say, to a certain extent, it's a little fluid because you may have needed one in November and then maybe your family gave you a device for Christmas.
Sure.
So your name would no longer need to be on that list. Or maybe you had one, but it just recently stopped working. So you weren't on the list, but now you need to be put on the list. So there is an element of fluidity. But the lists ultimately originate with the schools, with the principals. They know the students, and they collaborate with the ministry to let us know, right? So that's how we'll identify the students.
Is there a number in terms of what you're trying to reach, though? Like,
wow.
Maybe one of you guys could answer that? Yeah.
Let me just say something about that. Well, we have about 5,000 high school students that need laptops. That's about 25% of high school students.
Yeah.
You have, just to give you a little more information, there's about 27,000 primary school students that need laptops. That's about 45% of primary school students.
Wow.
So there's a huge need for laptops. And this is the thing, most of these kids have lost about almost 2 years of education, right? And many of these kids have become disengaged and distracted. Many have dropped out of school. And the thing is, once they drop out, it's extremely hard to get them back in, you know? And you know, we have a major problem with poverty. We're at 65% for poverty. And this situation with the kids being out of school and not having what they need is only going to increase that, that number. And what's going to happen is we are going to be stuck in a perpetual cycle of poverty if this continues. We will, you know, never be able to reduce that number. And as you know, education is one of those things that will really get us out of poverty. And so that's, you know, one of the reasons why I really wanted to get this moving. And I, you know, even though everything is not 100%, I insisted with the board that I wanted to get the campaign going because, you know, every day that goes by is another day that we lose. It's another day that these kids are not being educated and they're not, you know, getting what they should be getting. Yeah. And I think we as a society have a responsibility to these children to make sure that they're getting what, you know, what they need and that their basic needs are being met. Yeah. And I think it's extremely important for everybody to understand that this is a serious crisis that we have. This is going to determine the future of what happens with this country, because these are our future leaders that we're talking about, you know. And so, you know, politics is part of the psyche of every Belizean, okay? And instead of thinking of politics right now, instead of thinking about the next election, we need to start thinking about the next generation, because the problems that we have will only be increased, you know?
No, absolutely. And you know, when you think about the fact that children have been learning through online courses in some way, shape, or form over the past 2 years, it's understood that they will need the technology to move forward. The teachers are better at it. The kids are, I mean, they pretty much knew it from they were 2. But your first part of your initiative is looking at getting the funding for the laptop. Let's just talk about how you're hoping the diaspora will support. Is it monetary? Do they purchase it themselves and ship to you? What's the thought process here?
You named it, Marceli. Purchase it. And first, we want to invite you to go to the website.
Okay.
BuildBelizeInc.org. Go to the website, and there you'll be able to get in touch with us. On the website, we also have resources for you, where we have the specification of a laptop that we need that will function for the high school students. And we also have referrals as to where you can go to get a laptop with those specifications.
Okay.
If you click on the links, you will find you can get a laptop with the right specifications and more than for $120.
Well, look how easy you made it with the link too.
Exactly.
You see that? It's like taking
that makes any shopper happy.
Take your slate pencil and click on the slate, all right? So that easy, easy. And as I said, you can purchase it and you can mail it, and we have two mailing options. There is a home address if you feel most secure with that, and there is also a business address that you can mail directly to Belize Freight, and Belize Freight will receive it. Once they receive it, they scan it, and you will get an email that informs you directly that we have received the laptop. We ask that when you mail it or order it, you put on there your name in order for us to know who's making that donation. Also go online, inform us, send us an email, and let us know, give us the tracking number. You know, all of technology is with us at our fingertips right now. So let's do that, work with us, and we're going to keep you informed.
You go
ahead.
No, I was just thinking how helpful that's going to be, and you found some very affordable laptops as well for purchase. I just wanted to ask a question out of curiosity. I think it's phase 3 of your program has Sponsor a Child.
Yes.
That's what I saw from your website. You know, I always question this because there are families that can't afford to send their children to primary school, you know, and I think if people know how it's, what, $100, $200 to cover the school fees within school, and I know there are lots of people who would love to help. Do you think that it's simply that members of the diaspora don't know that these are costs that they can help with? Is that where you hope to fill that gap? Because that's something I know a lot of kind-hearted people are willing to be able to assist with.
And it's not only that they don't know, Marcelli, it's also that they need that medium, that vehicle that they can trust to send this through. And this is what Build Belize is offering to do, is to identify those people that are in need and getting the money directly to them or to the school for this to work properly.
Okay.
And Marlene,
go ahead.
let me just add to that. You know, I think it's extremely important that people know that the diaspora has been helping people in this country for years and years, and in, you know, being extremely generous. And unfortunately, they never really get recognized or acknowledged. So people don't really know what's going on with the diaspora, right? But there's so many organizations in the diaspora. There's so many individuals in the diaspora that have been helping over the years. And right now, what we're trying to do is with Build Belize, we're encouraging the diaspora. If you have donations, you know, large donations that you're trying to send home, we are here to help you with that process. I always hear about the logistical issues that people have when they to send things home, and that's why we're here. Let me just say that right now with the Donate to Educate campaign, one of the great things about the campaign, Marlene, you go online, you go to the website, you click the link that says purchase a laptop, you go on, you purchase the laptop, and there's nothing else that you need to do. You send the laptop directly to the address that you see there on the link, and that's it. We take care of the shipping fees, of the duties, and, you know, broker fees and taxes and whatever else, you know, comes with all the expenses that comes with that. And when I say we take care of it, either we're, you know, working with different ministries, or we're working with donors to help, you know, make that happen. So we're really trying to get the diaspora to continue to give that the way they've been giving, and not to get frustrated, you know. And the great thing about this too is that we get to now track what's coming in through the diaspora. So at some point we can quantify what it is, you know, how much we've been getting from the diaspora. So we have better information when we're trying to create programs and policies. And this, you know, works well with the Diaspora Relations Unit, you know. So we work very closely with the Diaspora Relations Unit because, again, our goals are very much aligned, you know. And like I said, we're just assisting, and just assisting what's already created in the, you know, holistic plan by the government, and we're just trying to help to carry it out in a very, you know, in an easier way. And again, like, we're just trying to, we just want people to know that, you know, we're very much for transparency and accountability. We're just trying to create an easier process.
That was going to be my question. So if I you know, send a laptop to a child, do I get to find out which child received it? I mean, is there any connection that is built beyond that?
Well, that's one of the things that I think we'll have to work out. The plan right now is that they'll be sent in bulk.
Okay.
So it's not going to be one today and one in 2 weeks or anything like that. They're being basically collected and collated, and we will know when a shipment will come in.
Okay.
Right? And then we will be monitoring the overall list. So that we can try to see. Obviously, it's difficult to say, you know, there's a need everywhere. How do I say that you need it more than you do? And with as many as 5,000 plus students, and this is just secondary, who need laptops, obviously, you know, this is not going to be an immediate solution for everyone.
Yeah.
But we do want to begin to do that and find ways to assure the donors that their laptop has reached the hands of a needy student, right?
Yeah.
So the specifics of linking with the school and with the students, these are the details that we're still working out.
Yeah.
It's the same, you know, you mentioned about the fund basically, right? People need support in different ways. Some people may be able to manage one set of expenses but not another. So
I may have the laptop but can't pay the electricity or the internet.
Or internet, exactly, right? And so these are the things that we're working on, and we're trying to see what is a way that is transparent and accountable, that is still going to be supportive, you know, where we can be able to say, these are people who need help, and then say back, these are people you helped, right? Without violating privacy, without, you know, being mindful
or being
and respectful,
exploitative,
exactly, of what's happening. So we're trying to work it out.
It's an exercise in logistics.
It absolutely is.
There's one more point that I would like to make in that with the laptops, when we're giving them out to the children, well, first let me just say that we're putting as many controls in place that we possibly could, reasonable controls, and CEO Mahia has been great about that. We're working together to put the controls in place to make sure that we mitigate the losses, you know. But one of the great things about what we're gonna do with the laptops is we're not just going to give it to a child. I think it's extremely important. We believe that it's extremely important that the child learns the value of what it is that they are receiving. You know, somebody worked really hard to send that laptop. You know, that child needs to understand that. So we are going to be requiring from the children to put in 20 to 30 hours of community service, and that is going to be their form of payment, if you will, for the laptops. You know, because we really want them to become responsible for those laptops and really understand the value of what they've been given.
Right.
So it's like a paid forward system.
Exactly, right? Yeah.
That's exactly what it is.
You know, we're also trying to, again, learn, lessons learned, right? Our ministry has been able to secure Google Workspace accounts for free. And what I understand from our tech people is that if they add these devices to those accounts, that there's also a certain amount of tracking that can happen. So you can, you know, sort of know where your device is or know where it will be, that sort of thing, if devices are lost or, God forbid, stolen, right? So we're trying to...
They'll ping you.
Yes.
And I would like to add, young man, I didn't get your name. What's your name?
My name is Isani.
Isani, that's it. Isani. Isani and Marcelli.
Marlene.
We want to... Marlene, okay. Correct me. Age is telling. Isani and Marlene, we want to appeal to the human side of people. Right now we're in a pandemic and we have all the statistics of how many people are getting sick and how many people are passing away. But bottom line, we appeal to people's conscience and we say, listen, wear a mask. It's not only protecting you, it's protecting your grandparents, it's protecting your family. Here we're saying, help us. These kids, high school students, they need this item. They need a laptop. Help us. Forget all the statistics. Especially, you might want to ask, where are they going to get internet from if they can't even afford a laptop? Okay? Go back to basics. Go back to the days gone by when you used to go to the library and do your homework. And you can go to the library today with your laptop and you get free Wi-Fi. Go back to the days when you used to go over to your friend's house and do homework. and you could go over to one of your friends with who has Wi-Fi, and you could get your homework done. That whole community spirit, going back to the time of when everybody knew everybody, and we used to do things together. And that's one of the other results of getting a laptop into a child's hand that really needs it.
All right. Just lastly, what's your timeline here? You have an aim of 5,000 laptops. You're opening up the, officially launching the campaign so people can get online right now and purchase and send. But what's the time frame you're looking at, ideally?
That's a great question, Marlene. You know what? It's one of those things we're gonna leave. Right now, it's gonna stay open for as long as we need to have it open. And by that, I mean, we need to keep monitoring the situation with the laptops, for example, to see what's going on, you know, how, if the kids are getting what they need, if they have access to internet also, you know, it's just one of those things, like CEO Mejia said, it's a very fluid situation. So I would love to say that in a month, we would love to collect, you know, 5,000 laptops. And if that's possible, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
You know, but, you know, we're going to leave it open and just to, so people can give, you know, as soon as they can afford to do that. And when it works for them, they can give, and, you know, we'll just leave it open. And just so one more thing I want to say is that, you know, even though we're launching today, we've been working behind the scenes we tried to start it a little earlier, and CEO Mejia, just so you know, we're close to 100 laptops already. So we'll probably be sending these 100 laptops hopefully next week. And so we, you know, we've been working.
All right. Well, I mean, the sooner people, or if they can afford it, send it, the sooner the child can get it to be able to assist them with their work.
Exactly.
And there's a whole lot of catching up to do when it comes to school.
Absolutely.
We'll have that conversation another time, CEO. But just closing thoughts, everybody. Let's start with you, Ray.
I love Belize. I give to Belize. I work for Belize. And I am inviting everybody, Belizeans and friends of Belize who have always helped.
Yeah.
Please go to our website and make a donation. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Ambassador?
Yes, well, we're all in this together. You know, please go to the website, donate a laptop, give a child hope and a chance to have a great future.
All right. There you go. And CEO?
I said this last week with a group of people that I was with, that, you know, I had a conversation with one of those people who, when, you know, in every school, there's always someone who seems to do everything and maybe overlooked. The janitor, the cleaner, the messenger, that sort of all-around person. And he said to me, you know, Miss Diane, I'm right here trying my best and doing my part. And that really is all that we can do. And so, I mean, on behalf of the ministry, we are deeply appreciative of people like Ray and Ambassador Murphy, who have stepped up and said, well, how can I help? And, you know, they're trying to do their best, trying to do their part. That's all that we can do. So we thank them on behalf of the students who will be recipients of these laptops. We're grateful to all of them. And you know, let's all just continue to try our best and do our part.
Yeah, and help where you can.
That's exactly
most
right.
importantly. Well, we appreciate the conversation. It is a fantastic initiative. We know that our Belizeans living abroad, as they're always watching, and they are always supporting and following what's happening back home. So now, now that you catch up with the latest news, you can find your way to support as well. Once again, that website is Building Belize, buildbelize.org.
Build Belize Inc.
There it is, right there. All right, but we appreciate you coming in. Thank you once again. Best of luck.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you so much for having us. Thank you.
And with that, we're going to go ahead and take our final break. And when we come back, we'll have our wrap up. So stay tuned.
Child Development Foundation, or CDF as we are popularly known, has been partnering with Social Security Board since 2015. Social Security Board supports our child protection initiatives. They support us to build capacity for teachers and parents to identify the indicators of abuse. In particular, they support our counseling center so that we can provide trauma-focused counseling therapy to children who have been abused. Social Security has also supported our prevention program, the Rise Girls program, to help us to equip young women who are in primary and secondary school to understand more about adolescent development and also to build good self-esteem and to build safe social networks.
Over the past 6 years, we have established a partnership with the Social Security Board. It has assisted us in addressing some of their social welfare needs and health care needs of our older persons, specifically in Belize City, San Ignacio, and Belmopan. We have had the opportunity to do home visits with our geriatrician and physiotherapists. We distribute meals to them. We also have that opportunity to interact with them, to observe them. There are needs that may be identified. If we can address those, we do so.
Social Security has been one of our biggest donors throughout the years, and the services that they provide to us is basically financial, and it helps with a lot of things here at the center like bills and groceries. The center is a drop-in center for the mentally ill, elderly, homeless, deportees. They come here, they take a shower, they get their breakfast, they get their lunch, and they also do recreational stuff here at the center. They can watch television, they listen to music, they play games, and they just, interact with each other because here it's like a family.
The ministry is collaborating with SpeedNet Communications to have a vaccination campaign for children ages 12 to 17 years. Children who get vaccinated will get a chance to win fabulous prizes, including backpacks with supplies, Nintendo Switch, tablets, book tuitions, and MiFi with 3 months data. Only children 12 to 17 years old can participate in this Smart and Ministry of Health and Wellness raffle. At vaccination sites, each vaccinated child, upon being vaccinated, will receive a ticket to place their name, age, date of birth, BHIS number, and contact information on, which will be filled out by a parent or legal guardian. The sooner a person vaccinates, the more chances he or she will have to win. Get vaccinated, Belize! Vaccination saves lives.
With eCash, bill payment is extremely convenient, and all utility companies accept eCash payments. What's even better? You get to split bills with your roommates, siblings, or whoever you desire. Simply open your eCash app, go to Bill Pay, tap the respective utility company, enter the information, and pay the bill. Then tap the transaction made. Tap Split the bill. Select Evenly. Send the request to who you are splitting the bill with, and get notified when they pay. Talk about making life easy and avoiding confusion. You can split the bill for restaurants, grocery stores, and for any eCash payment you make. To find your next yummy meal, hair treatment, or chill spot, simply open the app and utilize the geolocation service to see nearby businesses that accept eCash. Geolocation and bill payment make life a whole lot easier.
we're back. And of course, we want to say thank you for tuning in today. Really interesting conversations.
We spoke with the epidemiologist, from the Ministry
Glad
of
you
Health
took
and
that
Wellness.
word. It's my least favorite.
Dr. Manzanero was able to share with us some interesting data in respect of where we are with the COVID-19 pandemic by variants, by positivity rates, by hotspots even. And so being able to paint that picture kind of brought some perspective to what the response is and what we're seeing from the public health sector.
Absolutely. And I got to say this much. I think that looking back to see where we are and the different waves that we've passed through, and when you see, especially people who are visual, that appreciate that graph this morning where you see one wave, and then Omicron. But key takeaway for me is that, one, we are in the peak of the Omicron wave. And while, yes, the optimistic side says, okay, that means it'll be decreasing soon, the pragmatic side is that this is the largest number of active cases we'll have at any given time, which means your exposure risk is even higher. So we have to continue doing our part so that we can stay safe from contracting COVID-19 and, most importantly, controlling the spread. So Dr. Manzanero kept on going back to the same things over and over. Distance, mask, sanitization, and vaccination. And so we encourage you to do the same.
And then our second conversation, again, is also an encouragement and an appeal to Belizeans in the diaspora to help this initiative that has been launched to try to get as many devices to 5,000 in the first instance, high school kids, right? And then you also have those in the primary school level who are going to be needing laptops and other devices to assist with their learning.
A great way for the diaspora unit to be able to assist in facilitating help back home. We always talk about how Belizeans living abroad and the diaspora contribute towards the economy in the form of remittances. But, our panel this morning, Ray and Ambassador Murphy, pointed out something that we also know as well, that we get a lot of assistance from the Belizean diaspora. They help churches, they help community groups, sometimes they help individual schools, they help family members, and sometimes even offer support to people who we have right here on the news, who ask for assistance. So there are a lot of people out there who are not living at home, who want to find ways to contribute, and what they're doing is kind of formalizing ways that you can do so, making it simpler, and taking out a lot of the work of finding and sourcing the people here locally. So that website will post for you on the Facebook page so you can be able to find out more. The current campaign is for laptops for secondary schools, but they also have preschool kits that you can contribute to and sponsoring a child's education.
There we go.
All right. And with that, though, we're going to wrap up the show. If you'd like to contact us, send us an email at oye@channel5belize.com. You can also find us on Facebook at Open Your Eyes BZ and on Instagram at OYEBelize. And remember to tune in tomorrow morning at 6:30 when you open your eyes.
To start your morning right.
Until then, keep your eyes, your mind,
and your hearts open.
We'll see you soon. Enjoy your day, please.
Open Your Eyes was brought to you by the Belize Bank. Our country, your bank.